6 a.m. and it is very cold and very dark, and today I'm working a 7:30 till 5:30 shift in the emergency department of the hospital. The night before, I get all of my clothes ready, my uniform and the clothes that I want to get changed into when I finish the shift and leave the hospital. And to make my morning nice and easy, I get all of my food ready. I make myself some overnight oats the night before so I can just pop them in the microwave and eat them. And I prep all of my lunch stuff and get my coffee items ready. You guys can come with me for this shift. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to be sitting down and discussing some real cases that I've seen at work. And we will talk through the actual patients I've seen. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Right, so I've just arrived at work. It's 7:20 and the first thing that we do when we get in is going to a meeting where they allocate us to a team. That can either be resus, majors, minors, or the short stay unit, or COVID. So I don't know where I'm going to be working today, but let's go and find out. I would like to say that I feel fresh for this shift, but last night Bonnie, our 6-month-old puppy, kept us awake a lot. She was barking through the night. It was raining really heavily, so I think maybe the rain was waking her up. I don't know, but anyway, I'm only doing one shift, so I'll just get through it, and I've had a coffee, so that'll start to kick in soon. Feels quite strange to me doing a day shift because I've mainly been doing nights and twilights, but on Sunday, which was a week ago, I was doing a night shift, and I started to feel really unwell during it. You guys know I had COVID back in October, and it's the end of December now, and I haven't quite ever felt normal since then. I've been struggling a lot with my chest, struggling a lot with fatigue, and it just kind of got to me on Sunday night, so I ended up leaving the shift, which I've never done before, but I just felt too unwell to carry on working, so I've decided to do day shifts instead and see how I get on with that, because I think that night shifts are probably contributing to that. After we go to the handover meeting where we're told where we're going to be allocated for the shift, we go to our specific designated areas and take handover from the night team so that we can take care of their patients and they can go home. I give everything a really thorough clean down, which we need to do at the start of every shift and between every single patient. Always important, but especially important in the pandemic. At about 2 o'clock, I get my break, and this glimpse of daylight out the window is the only daylight I get to see all day through the shift. So I'm back to my car now, and I am going to keep this brief because I'm very cold and I want to get home, but I thought we could sit down and talk about some of the patients that I saw today, obviously keeping it confidential, but it was quite an interesting day, so yeah, I thought we could have a little chat about some of the patients. So at the start of the shift, I went into the handover meeting, got told that I was working in the urgent treatment unit, and the urgent treatment unit is a bit like a walk-in centre but a bit more severe than things that you would see at a GP practice, so injuries and illnesses. The interesting thing about working there, because the patients aren't technically meant to be as poorly as they would be if they were in majors or resus, you can sometimes get tricked into thinking that they're very well and that everyone should be discharged home after, any investigations you need to do, or even not having any bloods or scans or anything. But quite a lot of the time we find that people are quite poorly around there, so you have to be really careful in making sure that you have a high index of suspicion for things being more sinister than they might appear. So I saw a lot of patients with chest pain, and 9 out of 10 of those chest pains will be basically nothing, or nothing serious at least, but you get the odd one that is something serious, and you have to be really careful to not let that one slip through the net, because that can be devastating for the patient. And in our department we have a rule that anyone that comes in over a certain age with chest pain has to be discussed with a consultant before they can be sent home, so there's kind of a bit of a safety net there. So yeah, at the start of the shift I got some handovers from the night team, and my job was to chase the blood results results for those and the scan results, and then to refer them to the appropriate teams. And that takes a lot of time. Like, you don't really realize this before becoming a doctor, but a lot of the work that you do isn't actually sitting down and talking to the patients. A lot of it's the background stuff, all the typing, chasing bloods, chasing scans, and ringing up other teams to refer them. So that's quite time consuming, and then doing all the typing, because everything you talk about with any other person about the patient has to be documented. So I'm just going to give some examples of some of the things I saw today. A person with a head injury and a skull fracture, so that's quite serious, and that patient needed admitting. And whenever anyone has a skull fracture that can lead to air getting into the skull, we give an injection called a pneumovax injection, which is basically to prevent them from getting pneumococcal meningitis. And so we had to do a bit of education for one of the patients today, because this patient didn't want the vaccine and they seemed quite scared about the idea of having an injection. And I had to do a bit of investigating into sort of why this patient didn't want the injection. And they had basically been reading a lot of things on social media about vaccines and had decided that they didn't ever want to have any sort of vaccine. And I think that they may have been concerned that we were sort of secretly trying to give them a vaccine they hadn't agreed to, or and had heard lots of bad press, which is really unfortunate. It's one of the first people I've met who is a anti-vaxxer, but after a long discussion and an explanation that this vaccine was to prevent them catching meningitis and potentially dying, they agreed to have it. That was a good result, because it would be an awful shame for someone to get seriously ill and potentially die from something that is so easily preventable with a vaccine that we have available. So I'm very glad that that patient agreed to the injection in the end. I also saw a couple of patients with joint problems. So one person had some knee pain, swelling and redness, and it turned out to be gout. And another person had some shoulder pains, and that turned out to be osteoarthritis. Also had lots of chest pain patients. Probably I saw about 6 or 7 people with chest pain, and thankfully none of them turned out to be serious, but in a way I'm glad that all of them came to hospital, because it's always worth being safe with something like that. And chest pain is one of those things that causes people a lot of anxiety, and there's a horrible vicious cycle where anxiety can cause chest pain, and chest pain can make you more anxious because you're worrying that it's something serious, and so people can get themselves really worked up. And with it being just after Christmas, lots of people have been sort of struggling with symptoms over the Christmas period and not seeking medical attention because they don't want to bother anyone, and then waiting until they get themselves really into a state or their condition gets worse. So yes, it saw a lot of people like that today, and I'm glad that they have made the trip and actually come to hospital, because we are here. The NHS is working 24/7. Although some services close over Christmas, like GP practices close for Christmas Day, the NHS is still up and running. The emergency services are still up and running. So for things that are potentially life-threatening, it is always worth calling 111 and getting seen. And I try and make an effort to tell my patients that, especially the elderly population, they seem to have this real fear of bothering people, and they want to just crack on and not bother people, not worry anyone, and they're very stoic a lot of the time and just want to deal with their symptoms and not make a fuss. So I always try and remind them that we are here for a reason, we are providing a service, and they are entitled to get help if they need it, and that they aren't bothering anyone and they should make a fuss. A little bit of reassurance and patient education for people there. I also saw someone who came in with a problem post-operatively, where they'd had a surgical procedure done 12 days ago and they were now experiencing some problems with it. So that was just quite an easy one, because it was a case of examining the patient and then calling up the surgical team that performed the operation, and they just took care of the patient, and that was that. So that was quite a nice quick case. That case only took me sort of 10 or 15 minutes to sort out, which is quite satisfying in a way. And then also saw a few patients with abdo pain, and I haven't found out what the last 2 patients have because I have handed those over to the evening team, but I think one of them might be gastritis which is inflammation of the lining of the stomach, which is a very, very painful condition and can cause people to get really, really worried because it is so painful. And the other one might be inflammatory bowel disease, so they will probably be admitted to the medical team. So yeah, all in all, an interesting shift. And then at the end of the shift, one of my colleagues, Osita, came over and we just had a really nice chat, and we were talking about sort of progressing up the ladder, becoming as you become more experienced as a doctor. And the main thing that progresses you forward is actually being self-motivated, proactive, curious, interested, and actually sort of making opportunities for yourself. And he made the really good point that quite often, if there's procedures being done, it can be really tempting to stand back and sort of say, oh, I'll watch this one, especially if there's quite a lot more senior there than you. But actually he's found that he gets more from the experience if he offers to do the procedure with a consultant guiding him and making sure that everything's okay. And because one, you get to get that signed off for your portfolio, but two, you get to perform that procedure with someone there watching you and making it safe. Because as you get more and more senior, quite often, if you're working in somewhere like a district general hospital, a small hospital, you might end up somewhere where you need to do an emergency procedure and you're the only one there who can do it. And even though you haven't actually had the chance to do it very often, so trying to throw yourself in the deep end and push yourself out of your comfort zone is what progresses you forward as a doctor. And I can totally agree with that. The times that I've pushed myself and thrown myself in the deep end safely are the times that I've really learned a lot and become more experienced as a doctor. So yeah, very interesting conversation with him, and I totally agree about the point of being enthusiastic and interested and pushing yourself forward. So any of you out there who are progressing as doctors or medical students or healthcare professionals, in fact any profession, just be interested and push yourself forward and take opportunities, because no one's going to come and hand them to you on a plate. Yeah, so that was our little chat. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. Comment down below if you've watched all the way to the end of this video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more doctor vlogs and other videos about what it's like to be a doctor and just general working in the hospital. And I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys.